All right, welcome everyone. Welcome to the Meet the Trainer event here at the Somatic School. My name's Nathan Blair. I'm the founder of the Somatic School, and it's really lovely to see you all here. We've got a nice big group here, and I still see people coming in, which is fab. This is the first time we've done a Meet the Trainer event, which is really exciting. So welcome to this sort of premiere experience for you all here at the Somatic School. We've been around for a while now, but we've not done something quite like this. So we're very delighted to be able to do this for you today. And you're going to be joined today by, so my name's Nathan, but you're also being joined, as you can see on the slide here, by Sam, our head of training, here at the school, Rachel Blackman and Paul Taylor-Pitt, three of our trainers here at the Somatic School. You'll be hearing a lot from them shortly, so obviously you'll get a chance to hear from them momentarily, but also just to introduce you to our wider training team as well. Sam, Rachel and Paul kindly volunteered to join us today so that they could share with you at this event. And we have more trainers on the team: Malay, Craig, Joe, Sam and Mike. And we would just want to name and acknowledge those members of our training team who aren't with us today, but are here in spirit. And I'm sure you'll get another chance to meet them another time if you join us for another event like this. So I'll pull down that slide now so you can see our faces a little better as well. And we're gonna get into this and have a fun time together at our Meet the Trainer event today. So just a couple of things to mention. We will have an hour together, and we'll be making time for Q&A at the end. And throughout, we'll be taking your questions. So if you want to ask a question, what we recommend is that you do that throughout the event, staying on mute during the actual panel discussion, but unless we invite you in, of course, in which case we'll love to hear from you. Otherwise, just sharing your questions into the chat space, and Meryl, our community and business development manager, will be here to his moderating today. She'll be picking out questions and kind of feeding them through so that we can get those answered for you, as many of those as we can at today's event. Great. So like I said, we're joined here by Sam Taylor, Rachel Blackman, and Paul Taylor-Pitt, and I'm Nathan Blair. And without further ado, let's put the focus on our trainers today and dive in. So, first of all, then, to mention a little bit, we at the Somatic School, even 3 years ago, we were still one of only perhaps three, at least in English, 3 somatic coach training schools that were offering explicitly somatic coaching skills for those wanting to learn these skills to work with clients as somatic coaches or body-oriented coaches. And I suppose it's been fascinating to notice that, at that time, from between now and then, and, we've been around for a few years prior to that, but even in the last 3 years, things have changed quite a lot. And, one of the things for us as a school, I suppose, is that we brought together an integration of established and respected body psychotherapy skills from established and respected body psychotherapy modalities and kind of integrated those together into one integrative coaching framework or one integrative framework for coaches. And so my first question to you trainers is what do you really appreciate most about this particular training that you will deliver on? And feel free to, anyone who wants to answer, jump in and share.
I'll jump in to get us going. Do you know, I just saw Phoenix, who's arrived. So Phoenix is a graduate of Somatic School. Phoenix was on one of the cohorts I trained on. And one of the things that I love is that people keep coming back and keep coming back for more. And Phoenix, I hope you're not coming back to see who you could have had. Maybe it could have been them. Because I love the sense of community that the Somatic School creates. And I love the sense of belonging that it creates in a way that I think it's very different to other coaching schools. In terms of the content itself, for me, I love just being in a space which is both head and body and brain and body brain and all of that. I think it's a unique and very exciting place to be.
Good to go. From Rich, yeah. So yeah, just piggybacking off you, Paul. I mean, one of the things I love is facilitating any space at the Somatic School. It has a particular feel to the space. As soon as the Zoom rooms are open, no matter which group, there's always this kind of consistency to the feeling. And I guess I'd describe it as loving presence and acceptance and support, a kind of wanting to meet one another wholly. But also I like this kind of mix of, we're here to work. It's an adult education environment, but we're also here to play and have fun and explore and learn. And that's kind of a really nice way to learn. I guess it's a change to the traditional learning environment.
Yeah, resonating with all of that. And I guess something that following on from that, Sam, is this kind of the apparent paradox of Zoom, and how I get questions sometimes, oh, a somatic coaching on Zoom, a training on Zoom. And yes, on Zoom, because I find that, and this is with my private practice as well, there's something so intimate. There's something so intimate and present about being here with each of you in your personal space, right here, and something so subtle and nuanced can arrive in this space, without distraction somehow. It's very, I find it very, very beautiful and emergent, actually, surprisingly so, maybe, if you're used to maybe more corporate usages of this format. And I think that's something that at the school I see done really beautifully. Yeah.
That reminds me of something that I hadn't maybe thought of before, Rachel, that when I've done coaching training in the past, it's been very corporate. So it's always had an office around it.
Yes.
And I think that maybe encourages or discourages certain behaviors. Whereas I think the privilege of working remotely like this is that often people will be at home. We're being invited as guests into people's homes. And I think it does add a different quality of conversation, because it really embodies that sense of, we are just being ourselves. We're not pretending to be anything. We're literally in each other's homes, in each other's spaces, in a way that I never experienced with like corporate coaching. And there's nothing wrong with corporate coaching. I loved it at the time, but it's very boundaried in that space. Whereas this is, get to see into people's houses all over the world and feel like a guest in their homes. It's a massive privilege.
Yeah, I'd say to add to that, what I love about Somatic School and body-oriented coaching is it's just opening ourselves up to the full realm of sensing. And that there's so much that can come through. It's not coming through the screen somehow. If we sort of open our receptivity, we have fun to kind of notice what's coming in on the different channels, but then combining that with the mind and the talking, for me, it's a great combination. And somehow being in a different space can open you up to more. Obviously, you're only still seeing, the top, but you're feeling the whole in a way, or you're at least opening yourself to feel as much as possible.
I love the way you put that. Go ahead. Go ahead, Rach. Oh, sure. Thank you. So I love the way you put that, Sam, because I often think about, many people think, surely you're limited with what you can sense. If you've got these sensory capabilities, surely you're limited there. And I often say, well, one of the only things you're really truly limited on is that you can't see people's legs. And most of what we communicate non-verbally kind of happens from the waist up quite a lot of the time anyway. Of course, naturally, those are you know, a tapping foot or a kind of crossing the legs or something like that can communicate a lot as well. But nonetheless, there's just so much there. Rach, were you going to add to what Sam was saying there? Or?
Yeah, just to amplify that. So the whole being is represented in the micro. The whole field of the being is present in all aspects anyway. And that's very communicable through these small frames, you know. And the other thing I was going to say is, because this work is drawn from body psychotherapy and applied it to a coaching framework, there's something about digestion or metabolic process that can happen afterwards, and you're sort of safe in your lounge room and, you know, in your kind of nest, if you like. And there's something about that I find really generative as well in these spaces.
It's a shame I can't see legs, because normally I've got really good shoes. So, you know, maybe we should start.
We do not doubt that for a second, Paul. Is there anything, I'm curious actually from each of you, if there's anything within the curriculum itself that you find yourselves particularly, you know, that as you're delivering those parts of the course, you find yourselves feeling lit up, or you come alive, or there's a certain sense of flow that you drop into as you're delivering these aspects, because, you know, each of you individually will have your own draws and electives and that sort of thing. I'm curious about that. Yeah.
Well, I mean, I love the whole thing in terms of, you know, what I'm interested in personally and for myself and for my clients is working at depth, but also working at height. So this kind of being able to explore what's really here, meet it, and come into relationship with it, but also moving towards potential. So that by itself is a major reason why I love the work. But my personal leanings are more towards systemic work, and, you know, I think IFS was already mentioned, eternal family systems, constellations, interpersonal neurobiology, so thinking of things as wholes and thinking of nature as an organism. So those are the bits that I love. And I'll add a little bit of the Buddhism, the Taoism. Those are the bits that kind of resonate for me. Curious to hear what Paul and Rachel, where that lands with you.
Gonna go next, Paul, or shall I? I'll go. So really resonating with the things you shared there, Sam, about the resonant field, that we are all living inside a resonant field of interrelationship. And I'm very interested in interpersonal neurobiology as a kind of foundation stone for my fascination at the moment and my geeking out on somatics. My personal fascination is the embodied imagination. I love the somatic imagination and how that is so deeply relational and also such a powerful site of neuroplastic transformation. So we can deeply change ourselves using this network that is in each of us, that is innately relational and innately symbolic and innately metaphoric and all of that. So for me, there's nothing in the course that doesn't explore via that route, if you like. So for me, there's a really lovely dance that happens between the things that I'm currently geeking out on and really fascinated by in my own research, in my own the edge of my own research, and stuff that I kind of know well that feels like a more familiar armchair that I just love delivering. Does that make sense? Yeah. And that continues to feed me as a trainer at the school.
I think for me, the stuff that I enjoy training the most is maybe the stuff that I enjoy doing the least. So I often think of myself as not a very fun person, and I get in my head a lot. And so I love training the parts which are about play and about experimentation, because it gives me permission to be in that space when I don't often give myself the time to do that. I don't necessarily think I have a favorite technique or favorite, because every time I start a module, I go, oh, this one's brilliant. Um, I guess what I love is just noticing the impact on people. That people might go off into a breakout to practice a technique and come back and then just share, just as a coach, the difference they could see in that practice client session that they've maybe never been able to access before through more traditional coaching, or someone who experiences it as a practice client in the space and comes out and goes, wow, we just achieved in 10 minutes what I wasn't able to do in 15 years. So I love those moments. And then I guess maybe just because it was just this weekend, but I was just starting a new intake. So we were looking at the foundations module, which is really like, how do you create the container? How do you create the space for all this amazing coaching to happen? And despite being someone who doesn't really like structure, I love training that module because it kind of just it equalizes everything, because it's about, here's how we build containment for all of these amazing conversations to have. And I quite, I say I don't like structure, maybe I do really. I quite like having a framework to work within, as it creates a lot of safety. So yeah, all of it, but especially the stuff that I'm not quite so good at myself.
Beautiful. Thank you. Hearing some of you speak about this has just had me have the thought, which is something I forgot to ask from the group here, from those of you who are attending this event, just a show of hands, who has attended our introduction to body into coaching event? Just to get a feel for that. Okay, cool. Quite a few of you. Good. Just want to get a feel. Obviously there we talk a lot more in depth about the actual curriculum itself, more so than we'll be talking about today, but just curious, because those of you who you'll probably have a frame of reference for what some of these, for Sam, Paul and Rachel, what they're talking about there. Also, just on that, if anybody does need to drop off at any point during this event and you'd like to have a conversation about the course with one of our course consultants, I'm just going to drop the Calendly link into the chat there now, just in case you want to pick that up and speak to one of our course consultants. So moving on to our next question then. So I suppose one of the things that has always been important to us, I suppose, as a school and as a training team, is that pioneering spirit. When we first began the Somatic School in 2018, well, when we started delivering the training in 2018, I think I had a really strong sense that we were at a crest of a wave. While somatics has been around for a long, long time, and in fact, somatics is nothing new. In fact, it's thousands of years, or you could say just simply the fact that we are living as a body with a body that's certainly as old as time. But the actual practice of somatic work within the helping professions largely grew in the 60s and the 60s and 70s, but in the world of coaching, only just begun to be embraced. And I would still say anyone who's training as a somatic or body oriented coach now is an early adopter. Think of all those talks about cryptocurrency that people were talking about in that curve, but it really does feel to me that you are still an early adopter now, whether it's being, even though there's so much buzz around it. But with that, I think that I'm very aware that one of the reasons why this has grown in popularity so much in recent years is because so much science is and evidence-based research is coming out that really supports this particular way of understanding people or all living things, but as integrated wholes. Sam mentioned earlier interpersonal neurobiology, for example, and body cognition, for example, but also whole systems theory and other approaches like understanding other learnings like this really make this kind of work almost, I can sometimes say, almost like future-proof, somewhat future-proof, which is kind of an exciting prospect in many ways. So I'm curious from each of you trainers here, what drew you to work with the Somatic School originally, or in this field and then in particular here at the Somatic School? Rachel, maybe come to you first, just because given your I'm curious. Yeah, we'll start with you, Rachel, and then we can hear from the others if anyone else wants to share.
Yeah, so my background is in the arts, I trained in the performing arts and worked in the performing arts for many years, and kind of came into somatic education that way via Feldenkrais and Alexander technique as part of my acting training, and then got very obsessed with improvisation at the same time as I was getting obsessed with somatics about 20 years ago. And then because of that very odd combination of fascinations, I kind of got headhunted by people who were interested in training coaches and facilitators. And that's kind of how I found my way into coaching, it kind of through this sort of strange back route. But actually, I also realized that, in fact, the work I was doing with Feldenkrais was a kind of coaching. It's kind of like, so I'm trained as a Feldenkrais practitioner. And so we're regarding the student, we call them the student, as creative, resourceful, and whole. And we're inviting them to come with an inquiry to the session. And we're collaborating, we're exploring together and making discoveries as we go. There's no telling, I'm not showing. Yeah. And it's very, very resonant with a coaching framework. And so it sort of feels almost like coaching feels almost like a click round the dial for somatics generally as a sort of pedagogy. Really feels very lined up. We're alongside and we're with, we're accompanying and we're co-discovering. Yeah, and I'm holding a frame where discovery might be possible for someone.
And it's worth mentioning,
yeah.
Rach, that not all somatic practice or somatic work is necessarily like that, but certainly the somatic modalities that you were trained in, your path, I think, had that kind of resonance, like the tuning fork kind of rings with this, because those particular modalities can fit very well with coaching. And
Yeah. And I was delighted when I met Nathan to discover that the Hakomi method, which is a really kind of strong influence on some of the aspects of the training, was that Ron Kurtz, who founded the Hakomi method, was originally a Feldenkrais practitioner, and that really sort of chimed for me. I went, of course he was, like I can totally see that lineage through it. So yeah, that's my pathway into this work.
I just wanted to be friends with Rachel, if I'm honest. So I came, well, the question is, how did you come to work here? I came here as a student, so I came and trained through the program, and Rachel was one of my trainers, and I was just really starstruck. Rachel was in the Matrix, and I was just like, oh, how am I talking to Rachel? So there was something, for me, there was something about almost like opening up this new world to me of stuff that I had heard of but hadn't ever experienced, because I was coming from a more kind of traditional coaching corporate background. I think what drew me to the school itself, I was actually kind of at this decision point where I'd spent a few years doing my doctorate and I was very in my head. And then I was thinking about doing something like Gestalt therapy, and I just thought, that's not going to be a laugh. And I was comparing that with the somatic school, and what I looked at was actually there's a whole heap of other stuff that goes on outside of my head that I'm just not tapped into. And so I was really attracted, both as a participant, to come and experience that and train and add it into my coaching. And then when I was given the opportunity to come and be a trainer, that was like, oh, that never happens. You don't do something that you love and then they say come and do it for a living. So it was a great opportunity to be part of the team and also maybe bring a bit of difference, because I don't have that somatic background. It's something that I developed and evolved through the course itself. So yeah, I remember during the training, like my husband would often like be quite suspicious at the end of a weekend, because if I like gave him a hug, he'd be like, "Are you do one of those somatic things on me?" And it was more like just going, "Oh, it just felt so natural to include it in my life as well as in my coaching." So it was, yeah, that's what kind of sold it to me, was just experiencing it myself and seeing how transformative it was.
And you've truly embodied these principles, Paul. I think about the recent meeting we had, and you named something that was happening, for your an experience with sort of sweaty palms in the moment of just speaking to that, kind of naming that in the moment, and really walking the talk of it. It's something that you don't just do in the training room, but you live it. Even when we're in team meetings, it's something that you draw on that all the time. I mean, all of you do, but you know, it's incredible. Just to note, even without having had a somatic background, it's something that you deeply embody at this stage. Amazing.
Also, I wasn't aware that the training had increased the number of hugs that was happening in the Paul Taylor Pitt household.
Oh yeah, that's how I got away with it. I was like, oh yeah, we've been trained in this now. I need to do it more.
Yeah, I think for me, the body-oriented coaching, somatic coaching is this integration of thinking and feeling. And prior, you know, I these parts lived in separate spheres. So I was kind of senior executive in local government and NHS, but at the same time I was running a record label, producer, DJ, and that was the somatic and feeling side. You know, we talk about the felt sense of the dance floor and the moving with the energy of the music and working with energy, really, I suppose. But these two places lived in completely different realms. What I really appreciate about somatic school is the combination of both. It's that kind of true to coaching, which starts, you know, there is a cognitive aspect to it, but true to somatics, and thereby supporting wholeness. You know, it's a place where I can feel like I can be myself fully, and that's not that's not what I had in my previous work environments.
Can I just chip in there, Sam? Because something I'm playing with at the moment in my life is the possibility that cognition happens as part of a whole body experience. Because where else is cognition happening?
Of course, yeah.
Yeah, and I love anything. The school is this really beautiful place where your wholeness is welcome. Our clients' wholeness is invited in all of their aspects. And there's not this kind of proportioning out of like cognition versus body. It's like, welcome home, cognition, to the embodied experience, you know? And that feels like so whole making for my heart.
And that's such an important principle here at school, you know, of like not throwing the baby out with the bathwater. What a horrible expression that is, but really, you know, it's like saying, you know, thinking is welcome here, talking is welcome here, our heads are welcome here. You know, it's like because they're part of us. It's all part of us, you know. And so we're welcoming the whole there, right? And you know, in particularly in Western modern society, we talk a lot about the brain almost as distinct from the body. The brain is an organ within the body. So it's sort of this, you know, rehoming all of these things within the embodied whole, I suppose, that we are. Cool. So one of the other things as well, I suppose, is that, you know, we really are, it's interesting. A lot of organizations have core values. And I remember when we sat down to finally craft a set of values, and what we did was we actually, rather than having a set of aspirational values that we put up on the wall, these are some things that we'd love to live to and through. Instead, we saw, well, what makes the somatic school the somatic school? What makes our training a somatic school training experience? And so we try to name or give language to what was already there. And I really do believe that, you know, things like inclusion, generosity of spirit, simplicity, you know, are things that are values that we hold, but they also come through in the training. And I'm thinking about that value of inclusion, no person or part left behind. You know, we started our school originally in London. That's where we began. Of course, now we have somanauts, as we say, from all over the world, from Singapore, Japan, France, Portugal, Mexico, the Philippines, all over Europe. You know, it's and America, of course, Canada, Australia, absolutely everywhere, every corner of the earth. That brings in itself a diversity. But also, you know, just the fact that we began in London. London is a mixing pot of culture and different people of different demographics, socioeconomic, ethnicity, religions. London's a great example of somewhere that has that kind of baked into it already. And I think that's how we began. So we haven't had to build diversity in. We want to be deliberate about it, of course, but we haven't had to build it in because it's always been very diverse. And much like how we run the Somatic School, almost like a living organism, a healthy ecosystem is a diverse one. You know, biodiversity is essential for the health and sustainability of an ecosystem. So I guess a question for you all trainers here, you know, we have a hugely diverse group of Somanauts. How does this show itself in the training room? If we kind of take a kind of broad understanding of diversity, and you know, how does that show itself in the training room? Maybe Paul, we could start with you and then open it up.
Yeah, you must have seen me leaning in, because I was already just thinking, one of the things I really love is when people translate it from English into their own languages and then speak back, and almost something, you know, thinking about the nuance of it, or, you know, there's something really beautiful about the way that this doesn't have to be done just this way. People can really make it their own. They can adopt it, they can adapt it. So there's a huge amount of difference that I see in the training rooms, both in terms of location, age, experience, gender identity, sexuality, race, all of those different things. Like there's so much, and all of it's welcome. And I think I really felt that as I went through it as a participant, and it's something that I really try to embody as a trainer in the space. You know, everything's welcome, even the stuff that's difficult, and even the stuff that, you know, similar to Sam being in a corporate background where we used to say to people, you know, bring your whole self to work, but we didn't really mean it. I think here we mean it and feel it. So, you know, I think the difference makes me a better trainer. It makes me a better coach. And it kind of helped me to open my mind about what could be possible. So, you know, I went from doing lots of kind of executive training, executive coaching, to going, actually, yeah, why don't I just open it up to everyone? And that, although that seems really obvious, that was quite a big shift for me, to move from quite an exclusive, you know, boundaried way of doing it to going, actually, I can coach anyone. And to be able to be with people who sometimes start the course going, I don't know if I'm a coach. I don't know if I want to be a coach. I'm not sure. And then they finish and go, I'm a really good coach. And it's lovely to see that, because it just opens up so many possibilities. So that acceptance of difference, the celebration of our own backgrounds, for me, just it makes such a difference to the actual learning experience. I see people, you know, sometimes who've been quite emotional about it, who say that they were maybe a bit scared of coming to a kind of a classroom environment, or to come to this space, and felt they would have to pretend to be something they're not. And then to see that shift, and to see people start to just relax into themselves, and then say, yeah, this made a difference. Yeah, I think we live it. We don't just talk about it.
And I'd add something about the biodiversity gets really exciting when it comes to graduation, because what you see is this kind of beautiful, kind of expansive fertilization, like cross fertilization in so many different territories of life, like bringing the tools into one woman in the training was working with homelessness, and there's all sorts of places it can go. Like this work has a beautiful kind of egalitarianism woven into its spirit somehow, and that can go anywhere there's people, you know. And that gets really exciting. I get really excited when I see people coming into the training with this idea of like, yeah, I really want to work with women in refuges, or whatever it is. They're sort of already recognizing a need that brings them into the training space, or from their existing practice, that then they get to apply with these extra nuanced, super effective tools, which is really exciting.
Nice, thanks, Rach. And thinking about sort of people coming in from a diverse set of professional backgrounds as well. You know, I suppose it's worth mentioning about, you know, we've just passed our 5th year anniversary about 6 months or so ago, and it was, you know, in January of last year that the ICF's accreditation excellence specialist, Caitlin Schaefer, said that, gave us the news that we were the world's first somatic coach training to be awarded the ICF's new level 2 accreditation. And for me, I feel like that was a significant milestone for us, because as Sam says, what's really important to us is that we are true to coaching and true to somatics. And a lot of time when both coaches and coach educators begin to bring the body more fully into the coaching space, they'll often get a little loose around what makes coaching really coaching. And the coaching approach, in our opinion, is a beautiful, egalitarian, person-centered, non-directive approach that really holds the client as the expert, right? And it centers around their empowerment, and not developing dependency. But becoming a professional coach is a process, and so level 2 accreditation builds that professionalism in, taking people all the way up to the level of professional certified coach standard by the ICF's standards, and opening doors to people professionally. So I'm curious, maybe we can come to you, Sam, for this one. How have you seen the course change and evolve over the years, and especially in light of what was required for our training to get to the point of being level 2 accredited by the ICF?
Yeah. I mean, when I took the course, obviously I took the second official cohort back in 2019, and the course back then was very much a CPD. There was this assumption that it was a effective, really cool integration of different somatic ways of working. So it was a somatic toolkit, but it was an add-on to a previous training. So you came with your coaching or your counseling or psychotherapy skills, or your other helping profession type skills, and you introduced somatic tools. Now, of course, we feel we've got the complete package. So it's a complete coaching education, everything you need to coach classically, which itself is a really useful and powerful modality, but then it's integrated with all the great kind of change methodologies of, say, focusing, Hakomi, constellations. So in a way, the ethos of the courses remain the same, but it's a kind of everything you need as a coach. And of course, we get lots of experienced coaches as well who come. And one of my favorites is, when experienced coaches say, hey, until this course, I was only coaching at 50%. I didn't realize it could be done this way. I didn't realize that you could make impactful change while also feeling good, So this kind of feeling good, the power of co-regulation, and in polyvagal theory, talk about being in a ventral vagal social engagement place, which creates the safety, the trust, the rapport, which creates a container for transformation, is something that feels good. And at the same time, it's what supports real change to happen. So in a way, we've stayed the same, but we've grown, we've expanded, we've included more and more. Initially, constellations wasn't part of the toolkit. Organic intelligence, working in nervous system, conscious and supportive ways, wasn't part of the initial toolkit. And you mentioned pioneering spirit as well, Nathan. We're always looking at what can improve the course, what can improve the method. There's a lot in the course, and one of the things about the somatic school is you're open to return and complete on the path 1 pathway. You have an open-ended time to complete your course. You can come back for your webinars, your practicums, that kind of thing. So we're trying to get the best of all worlds, right? That's what we're kind of sensing our way towards. And I would say that's what comes to mind first. Paul, what are you, what are you sensing? What are you feeling into?
Well, I'm just remembering because I think there was maybe a gap of about 18 months when I was away from, once I'd finished my training to then coming back as a trainer. And I remember thinking, this is a bit of a different course now, and feeling a little bit envious because I was like, oh, we didn't do that. And so I didn't get the ICF accreditation because it wasn't available back then.
Mm.
But for me, what that made me do was go, well, I want to go and get it now because if the people I'm working with are getting it, then I feel like I should have that experience as well. So, I came into it from a more traditional coaching background, embedded the somatic work into that practice, and felt a real sense of freedom from that. And then off I went to explore what that was like, left my full-time job, started my own business, was like, oh, this is the world. And then came back and started training it and went, actually, it would be really nice to get that ICF accreditation. So, because it just gave everything more of a structure and a framework than I'd been used to. So, yeah, it definitely, I don't know that I've ever trained the same course twice, partly because we're improving it, but also every time I'm with a group, the group is different. And so different things come up. And, I think as a school, what we love doing and what we're really good at is if something comes up from a participant, we're like, oh, how might we embed that because we can enhance what we're doing. So yeah, I just remember coming back and going, this is a different course now. It was great then, and now it's kind of just next level. So yeah, it's been great. And then I got another qualification, which was really
Yeah,
cool.
I think you make a great point there, Paul, that because of the level 2, it's a really straightforward carry through to get your ICF credentials, your badges, and that is a big change. Makes it a lot easier than doing it any other route. And as we've seen in the last 3 years, with the pandemic and all of that, this kind of these coaching agencies taking over, these coaching marketplaces. And so for those who want to go down that route, the course offers that. But of course, there are multitude of paths through the course that reflects what Rachel was saying about the uniqueness of each individual and where they go and take the work. So yeah, it's a
Thanks.
yeah.
And just to clarify, when Sam refers to these coaching agencies, to give you an example, this would be places like Sanctus in the UK or BetterUp or MindUp, and these are these agencies that quite often. So what they do is they hire you as a coach, and then you work with their clients that they bring to you. So it's a great way for you to get regular work, and quite often there's a minimum requirement. They require at the very least an ACC credential with the ICF, which of course you can get through a level 2 training like the one here at the school. Both the ACC, not only the ACC, but you also have the one-stop shop, so to speak, for getting your ACC credential and your PCC credential without having to do anything additional beyond that level 2 path. The few bits that you need to do that only you can do off the back of your training. Now, I'm mindful of the time. Meryl, does this feel like a good time for us to come to attendee questions? Yeah, awesome. Okay, so I've got one here from, are these anonymous questions? Is that what anon means? Okay, great. So how much support is there for someone who hasn't had any coaching training before? So I'll put these to you trainers. Yeah, so these questions. So how much support is there for someone who hasn't had any coaching training before? I'm coming at it as a body worker, but I do often informally coach my clients, helping them to connect to their bodies and their gut feelings more and really enjoy that element of my works. Question is, how much support is there for someone who hasn't had any coaching training beforehand?
Well, we have a real range in the room. So it's always, there are some coaches who have not coached before, some who have experience, and it works really nicely that way. So there is no prior requirement in terms of coaching. Same with somatics, no prior requirement in terms of somatics. We're kind of building both up from the ground. Yeah, Paul, what would you say to that?
Yeah, I mean, having just trained module 1 at the weekend,
Right.
there was a number of people in that new intake who didn't have coaching experience. But what I think I heard some people say was that by the end of the weekend, they went, oh, I kind of have been coaching. I just didn't know that's what it was. And now I know what the framework is. And now I can see where I could make it even better. So yeah, I think that the module one, the reason we start with module one with foundations of coaching is it just clarifies what's our take on coaching as a school. How does it align with ICF? You know, everyone's past experience is welcome, whether it's coaching, somatic work, or something different. You know, we've had people on the course who've been lawyers, and we've had people who have been, you know, marine scientists, and they come to it. Yeah, Meryl, talking about you, and they come to it with everything that they already bring. None of it is wasted. Everything is used, and I think the way that we offer the support around coaching is a really good balance for people who are coming to it going, I think I want to be a coach. I think I've got this. What do I do with it?
Thank you both. And Rachel, one for you here from, so I can see that Eliana had asked in the chat here. I'm just opening it up here in the space for the group here. So the question was, what would you say is the best way to approach somatic therapy training for someone who doesn't know anything about this, just so one can embrace it, especially if already being a coach like myself, working with different healing modalities and methods. And I suppose here we can kind of have that interchangeable with somatic coaching as well, I suppose. Was there anything you wanted to open up on that one, Rach, here just in the group?
Yeah, I mean, just as a start of a 10, reading that question, the first thing that came up in my body was, how might it be to follow your curiosity and your delight in what you orient towards in your next step? So if you were to follow your curiosity and your enjoyment, where might that take you next? And rather than be led by should or external factors telling you what they recommend you do, what if your body might know something about that already? just to sort of throw a little bit about what we're here doing anyway today, right? Like, how's that land, Alana, sorry.
Or Eliana, in fact.
Eliana, sorry.
It's great. Thank you. She says in the chat. Wonderful.
Oh, good, great.
So we might have time for this one last question here. Great. Thanks, Eliana. So we might have time for this last question here, which was, how do we create safety within the cohorts? The person who asked this question did some coach training last year, is now a little apprehensive about doing another coaching course after some of the experiences they had there. And so the question is really, how do we create safety within our coach training for our cohorts?
Shall I speak to that just a little around the co-regulation piece just briefly? So we have, like, at the school, one of the founding pedagogies, I guess, or theories that we plant ourselves in is polyvagal theory, and the principle that if it's not resonant, it's not right. If it's not resonant, it's not happening. So the possibility that we might be orienting via the neuroception of goodness and yumminess, the neuroception of okayness, as a sort of founding principle, like we're starting there. That's upstream of everything else that we're teaching. So what we find at the school generally is when we start from there, then these environments that we're opening up into and these tools that we're practicing with already is couched inside a receptivity in the nervous system. So I guess that's what kind of trips off my tongue in response to that question, first of all, but I'm really curious about what the rest of you might say.
I mean, I guess for me, as you know, as part of the training team and knowing the other trainers really well, we all come from different backgrounds. We all have different experience as coaches and as somatic workers. The thing that I think is consistently the same across us is that we're all really good trainers. You know, we are all experienced in holding space and facilitation, and we hold each other to account on that in the way that we have, you know, peer sessions. And for me, there's something about how I hate to use the word role model because it's not about looking up to us, but it's about role modeling the behaviors that we would expect of the coaches who graduate from the Somatic School, which is about creating those safe places. And that happens through structure, you know, that happens through deliberate, concrete behavior that you have to not just see or hear, but feel. And so I think as a training team, that's something we pay a lot of attention to, is giving the structure, giving the space, not just that we say this is safe, but that we co-create it. We actually work with the participants on the cohort to co-create what does this space need to be like. And it doesn't mean for the whole course, it could just be today or now or this weekend. And I love the question. I think safety is really important. I also think what happens in a safe environment, for me anyway, is that I feel more able to take risks, and I feel more able to do the stuff that's maybe a little bit more unsafe because I'm held in that. And so, yeah, you know, both my experience of going through the course and training on it is that that's something we pay a lot of attention. And I'm just really sorry that you had that experience. That's not okay.
Yeah,
And
that totally sucks.
thank you for asking the question.
Yeah, the whole thing is about safety. You know, the whole thing is about relational safety. It's only when we feel safe can we open up, and only when we feel safe to open up can we hear from the parts that are the parts that we really need to hear from, the places we really need to hear from. And so we do everything, you know, it's like the whole training is designed around safety. And that's from the check-ins to the design of the breakouts. And of course, we have certain things like we have the wellness pod, you know, places where people can go to take time out at any time. It's really normalized. You know, we want there to be basically a holding environment the whole way through the course and the school.
Beautiful. So a quick win here, Sam, just to come to you with as a kind of final question. Somebody had asked here, does each cohort or course have the same trainers throughout?
Yes and no. Okay, so we have the way it's organized, we have one main facilitator who holds the modules. So the core of the training are the 6 modules, you know, 2 days, followed by an integration call a few days later. So we have this experiential learning on the 2 days, and we let it settle, then we integrate it, and then we have a practicum. The integration call and the modules are with one trainer, usually follows the cohort through, but then we have different trainers taking practicums. They're community-wide practicums, so you can work with all the trainers. We have OI lab sessions for nervous system ways of working. That's with Craig, our OI expert. We have our coach mentors. So it's kind of like there's a special team that forms around every cohort and supports it through. And we really, you know, every experience, every cohort is unique. And yeah, it seems to work really well. Yeah.
Thank you all. This has been such a joy to share this space with you, and for us to kind of showcase each of you as our trainers, our wonderful trainers here at the Somatic School, and to hear from you, and thank you everyone who's joined us, and thank you all for your questions. Just in this final couple of minutes, just to mention, Meryl's dropped that course consultant link there into the chat, and also her email address if anyone wants to get in touch with Meryl directly, or if you'd like to have a conversation with someone, if you're interested in joining us on one of our upcoming courses, you can follow that link to book a call with either Caro or Amy, one of our course consultants. In the meantime, maybe just to close out, it'd be interesting, perhaps we can share into the chat, maybe you attendees could share into the chat just a takeaway from this, whether that's 1 or 2 words or a short sentence, whatever you want to share, you share freely, however that comes for you. It'd be interesting to see in the chat what you put. And while we're collecting some of those, team, is there a 1 or 2 word little hope or wish you'd like to share, or a final nugget or takeaway as we close up here?
Well, I like to take what Rachel offered, you know, which is, and that's what we try and practice, is tuning into what wants to happen, what wants to emerge, following that curiosity, and may everyone be able to follow their own curiosity and their own felt sense of what feels right for their next steps.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. So I'm just echoing what Sam says, really just even if all that you take away from this time together is a little bit more of an inclination to follow what longs to happen, what you long to have happen, that'd be brilliant. That's a result.
I mean, for me, maybe this is a reminder to myself. So I have this little print there that someone bought for me, which says, "Don't forget to have fun." And so that's, for me, that's my takeaway and my wish, is that actually, as well as professional training, this work, this learning is a lot of fun. And so I wish that for you. Keep having fun.
Amazing. Thank you all, Sam, Paul, Rachel, and Meryl. It's been a joy to have you all with us today. Thank you, everyone who came. It's been a pleasure to share the space with you. And in the meantime, go well. Hopefully we'll see some of you again soon and on another time. And yeah, have a wonderful rest of your day. Ciao for now.
Thanks for coming, everyone.
Thanks very much.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.